We've got some alien tentacles to deal with this morning, so let's get to work. I switched the bale unroller over to the big tractor and I'll be feeding hay with it for a few days. The clutch went out of my little tractor, so it's going to be out of commission. The good part is I don't have to come down early every morning and plug the little tractor in because the big tractor has glow plugs. The hay that I was fortunate enough to find for sale last winter came from out of state, and it contained quite a bit of Johnson grass. I was lucky to get it, but when you have Johnson grass, there are going to be some seeds, and after the seeds sprout, there's going to be some rhizomes. On the bottom side of some of these bales, you can see these Johnson grass rhizomes. If you'll remember from last winter when they had to buy the extra hay, a lot of it had Johnson grass in it, and this is a result of it. So I don't know whether that'll come back to haunt me in my pastures this summer or not. I like to lay on the hay after they get it all eat up. It appears to be quite a mess in the snow, but once the weather warms up, you won't notice it. Another thing about Johnson grass cropping up in your pasture is that when it is drought stressed from an extended dry spell, it can produce enough prussic acid to cause death in cattle if they ingest enough of it. These Johnson grass rhizomes look like a bunch of alien tentacles into the hay. Pond is still open because it didn't get terribly cold last night. I'll have to chop it in the morning if the weatherman's right, because it's supposed to get down in the low teens tonight. It's funny, this older cow kind of laid back from the others. The rest of them went out and ate at the bale unrolled. She knew I would put the remainder of the bale in the hay ring, so she stayed back, so she's got all that good hay to herself right now. She's loving it. Yesterday I just fed these cows in the north pasture a half bale because they hadn't been cleaning up a full bale even with this bad weather. It's the smallest group of cows I've got. I think there's just 23 in there, so a big 4x6 bale is a little bit much for them. So I've got a half a bale left over from yesterday. I'm going to hook onto it and feed them today. Let me explain that I have nothing against Johnson grass for hay. I grew up on a creek bottom farm, and once we cut the crop of oats for hay in early summer, we usually got another couple of cuttings of almost solid Johnson grass. Cut at the right stage of growth, I've always thought it made excellent feed. The downside of Johnson grass is that you risk spreading it in your pasture ground, and it can have some detrimental effects if you don't control it properly. And that's what these rhizomes might add to my pasture. We'll keep an eye on them. If you do end up with Johnson grass in your pasture, if the cattle can keep it eaten down and don't let it form seed heads, you're usually pretty good to go. Many of the cows are beginning to show that they're very close to start calving. Should start any day. This group of bulls seems to get along better than any group I've had for the winter. Nobody seems to run the rest of them off when eating. Kind of unusual. The pigs got a little extra treat this morning as Judy fed them some leftover gravy that we had from breakfast. I think they like it as much as I did. We didn't tell them it was sausage gravy. The last thing I want to say, if you end up with Johnson grass out in your pasture, if you keep them off of that until after the first frost, they can eat it pretty safely after that. Chopping ice on the pond in order for the cows to have water has been a daily chore for over a week now. I think chopping ice is as strenuous as shoveling snow, and they're both about as much fun. There are a couple of advantages of feeding with the big tractor. Number one, the heater works better and faster than it does in the small tractor. And secondly, it runs about 10 miles an hour faster down the county road to the creek place, which cuts down on my feeding time. It did take the cows a couple of days to get used to the engine noise of this tractor as opposed to the one they've been hearing all winter. Trust me, they knew something was different, but they still came for the hay. With the outside work done and now the inside work done too, let's call it a day.